Hey, this is Unbelievable Reality Podcast, and I'm Roy Arthur. Just kind of digging around, kind of dealing with the aftermath 2 weeks after the election, and the kind of just starting to come to real terms with the significance of what that election means to us in so many different ways, and really. Just kind of almost feeling like I'm kind of speechless when it comes to the appointments for cabinet positions by the Trump administration at this point. But I'm gonna get to that a little bit farther on, and also some other topics that are related to the appointments. But if you really first of all, I'm just going to say a couple of things book-wise, because I keep forgetting to do this, and I definitely want to recommend some educational reading. Take it for what it is, however you wish. But educational reading for everybody that might be helpful in understanding some of these big topics that we're really dealing with, like small topics, and that ain't the case. One is The Road to Unfreedom by Timothy Snyder. Basically explains Russia, Europe, and the United States and how they get into quasi-dictatorships and fascism, and what are the signals and what are the signs. This is really prescient considering when it was wrote. And then, once again, some more Harari. Huge fan of both of his previous novels, Sapiens and Homo Deus. Especially Homo Deus is so, I don't know what's the word I'm trying to look for. It's so prophetical, I guess, is the word. In his discussion of AI and what the possibilities of AI are and where it's going. Nexus explains the social media. It's not a phenomenon, it's just a new way for us to communicate, and the power of the written word, again, how important that is to us as human beings and societies. But those, if you haven't read a good book for a while, that makes you want to think and question, those are two reads I suggest. And speaking of reading, I'll tell you, there is nothing better to do than a cold fall day in November than sit down and try to plow your way through all 963, I believe, pages of the Project 2025. First of all, this is, if you really take the time, and this is available online. I mean, this is the whole manifesto is right there. So it's easily accessible. It is so much data and synonyms and just I can see why there was 270 contributors, all Christian nationalist, right wing as hell, because I mean this bad boy opens up right in the beginning, just flat out calling out the whole woke movement. I mean they don't even fool around here. I'm trying to get back to the very beginning page. Long story short, I pulled this up and then I moved it. Typical. It's kind of that mad scientist thing. From the very beginning, it's a completed plan, a playbook to just basically wipe out anything considered. And this is a nebulous consideration. This isn't set in stone. It's based on personal judgment as to what the right deems correct to teach in schools. I believe you might have heard Trump talk about it just a few days ago, about getting rid of anything, woke, counter-American. They want to teach a doctrine of Americanism, which is, I mean, who gets to define that? I mean, when you ask yourself that, who gets to define that? I mean, all of these are defined by the Christian nationalist movements while they're in power. And it's a rollback of every aspect of civil rights, particularly in certain areas. I mean, the military, you get into our educational system, it flat out calls for the elimination of the Department of Education, and which, to be truthful, I'm sure the Department of Education is bloated, because all of our departments are bloated, and an honest attempt to actually do some austerity measures, some economic, being economically frugal and responsible, wouldn't that be awesome if we could cut down on government spending? $900 toilets to the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. Hello? I mean, I think that pretty much starts us off. All of the federal bureaucracies are bloated, and that should be cut. But this is an attempt to really overtake every branch of the United States federal government in a way to direct it towards a white Christian nationalist theocracy, with the president, from what I perceive, from what I've read, they basically deify the president in Project 2025. I mean, every political appointee's job is purely to support the president's agenda, whatever the president's agenda is, blindly, without question. And the first step in this agenda is what we're seeing right now in Trump's nominations for cabinet level positions. I've taken a few minutes to write down the names, because there's so many of them, and he just appointed new Department of Energy head, which is going to thrill everybody that has any concerns in regards to climate change. It's going to thrill them to pieces, because he's an oil guy. He's he runs an oil company. He's been an oil executive. He's a big fan of fracking, more drilling, etc. To handle our environment, Department of the Environment. I mean, so oil and gas just got a big win right off the bat. And that's another thing that I've discovered in my reading of this thing, this Project 2025 thing, this manifesto. This is really pointed at corporations and oligarchs. I mean, really pointed at those guys to get what they want. It's in here, and you can see it if you just read through different areas. And like I said, it's so long. There's the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Department of State, Intelligence Community, media agencies for all global media, corporations for public broadcasting. Yeah, PBS, right in the crosshairs, Audio's PBS. On and on and on. The general welfare, that's just like the irony to me, sidebar, is that the conservative right has been calling the liberals, progressives, Democrats in particular, Marxist and communist. Tell me, please, the Agency for International Development, doesn't that sound a little Soviet Union to you? Section 3, the general welfare? I don't know. For oftentimes, I always took 99% of what comes out of the MAGA movement and the Trumpists and the Trump administration to be as projection. And it worked. It worked great. And they were masters of projecting before there was an opportunity to defend the position. So, because if somebody projects, then you're expected to respond, and they have an attack for any response that comes after they project their feelings, thoughts, emotions upon you. And then they're like, well, yeah, it's you that's doing it, not me. And then if you defend yourself and say, wait a minute, you just actually said those words. Oh, I didn't say that. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't say that at all. I digress dramatically, but I do believe that there's a Marxist, communist, fascist undertone to Project 2025, and that's to put it lightly. So, moving along with this, as I said earlier in the podcast, this goes to Trump's nominations, okay? Because he's following the blueprint. Exactly. Exactly. There is absolutely no doubt at all, and we're only 2 weeks from the election, that Donald Trump is following Project 2025 to the letter, or to the best of the letter they can make him do. Because Donald Trump is just uncontrollable. He's an egotistical child that literally runs around screening in the middle of, Macy's. I guess that would be a relative to him because he's a billionaire and he grew up rich and was a spoiled, rotten, egotistical brat. But as much as they can control him, he's following directions right along because they wrote this for him. And appointing all these people that are not qualified and in the slightest for the positions that they're being nominated for. I mean, it's not about. I'm trying to clean up my act a little bit and not be so personal and stop calling people morons and idiots. I think that's an emotional reaction on my part because I'm angry. And I'm angry because I thought that the American people were just more than what they showed, but getting personal, calling people names, saying moron, idiot, whatever, that's just waste of energy. And look, I think the country should be obviously clear on this. 40% of this country are mega members. That's it. I believe it's cult, but you call it what it is, political movement, whatever. But they're not going anywhere. They are not changing. They're not going anywhere. Forget about it. There is no discussion with these people. And what they want is a white nationalist, conservative Christian country. And this 2025 clearly spells out that they're not interested in moving forward. They want to hold on to their Americanism and their free personal rights. And I mean, they can't really describe it, but basically they want to go back in time, or they want to make up an America that suits their vision. And their vision is just tainted completely by mythology, bias, untruths, misrepresentations, on and on and on. I mean, that's what it is. But that is what it is. And those 40%, nothing going to be done. So, I'm really not talking to that part of the population because it's pointless. I'm talking to the rest. Now, there's 60% of this country, okay? 60% of this country is different than that. Just because they won the election by the popular vote, that's not a mandate. It still only comes out to 29% or 30% of the country. Okay? And of the people that didn't vote, there's still another 20 million. This isn't a mandate. This isn't the will of the people. This is the will of the few, specifically the few, the privileged, the rich. Because 2025, like I said earlier, is a billionaire's sexual dream. See, I'm just getting so much cleaner. But these skipping back again, these nominees for cabinet positions, and really these are such critical jobs in our government. People forget that the United States is part of the world, and as it's part of the world, it's just not the United States. Anyway, you start with Elise Stefanik for ambassador to the UN. No experience, no experience, nothing. She's a state representative that's just been glued in a position where she just, everything that comes out of the Trump administration, she just automatically says that's the greatest idea I ever heard in my life. No experience whatsoever dealing with world leaders. See, she's just a secretary of defense. Or not defense, ambassador to the UN. I got that screwed up with the Secretary of Defense because that's next. Anyway, no experience at all dealing with world leaders. How good is that going to go? Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. That one right there. Another, without getting personal, just a completely unqualified person for the job. Real simple synopsis. Tell me who from the colonel up, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star generals in the army, admirals in the Navy, of all 5 branches of service are going to respect or even listen to a major in the National Guard. That right there just makes this pick just insane. Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Once again, try not to get personal. This is a rough one, but it's if you don't know who Matt Gaetz is by now, and if you don't know that it's all true, everything that's been said, and you don't know that his best pals that spent 10 years in jail for the same very shit, and you don't realize that he never even practiced law, although he has a degree as Attorney General of the United States. I could go on. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel. I said it in a previous post. Really sorry, Muslims. This is how Trump is repaying you for your vote. If you don't believe me, once again, Google Huckabee and his stance on Israel and what he thinks about the Palestinians. Yeah, it's horrific. Kristi Noem from the thriving, massive state of South Dakota. I brought her up in a previous podcast too. For Homeland Security. And what I can't figure out is, are these decoys? So, and here's the thing. If the Senate gives him the recess deal where he can appoint these cabinet positions without hearings or Senate approval, then the Senate is totally capitulated, and we are alone in the middle of a dark sea in a hurricane in a rowboat without a can to bail. Good metaphor. If they just say no, if they go, okay, that says something. If the Senate shows, if some of the people in the Senate that aren't attached, their personal wealth, well-being, stature attached to the Trump administration, if there is a handful out there that are even remotely of character, with morals, values, etc., they're going to say no. And it only takes 3 or 4 of them say no. It's got to be a majority agreement on the ruling party, I guess. So, because obviously the Democrats, we know how they're going to vote. Then my question is are all of these just decoys? I mean, when you look at these nominations, are they just decoys? The Senate says, no, you got to go through the process. These guys withdraw. And then all of a sudden a new candidate comes in. Because I can't believe for a second that these would be the candidates for these, or nominations. I mean nominations. I keep getting them mixed up. I can't believe anybody involved with 25 meant this. But I feel also everybody else has learned the hard way. And I think these guys are going to learn the hard way too. You can't control Donald Trump, and everybody that's tried to has completely failed. Anyway, those are my opinions on the facts. Like I said, actually read some Project 2025. Get a clue. This is pretty bad shit. It's worth just take 20 minutes and just chop it up. Read just a few pages. But do it. Anyway, those are my opinions as always. If you don't like it, well, fuck, comment. Come on, give me some hell. I'm all good with it. Follow, of course. There'll be more controversy to come. And check us out, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Follow, like. I'll be around.